Hi everyone, I'm here with a very exciting update to a years-old missing persons case. Akia Eggleston was an 8-month pregnant Black woman who went missing, and it seems that 2022 is the year where she may finally get justice. But before I get into it, I just want to welcome you to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sylvia, and I cover all kinds of true crime stories, even though I did change it up a little bit when I covered the Travis the chimpanzee attack from 2009. If you like all kinds of spooky stories, then I highly recommend that you hit that subscribe button down below. And if you're a returning subscriber, then an extra special welcome to you. Thank you so much for supporting me and my channel. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you are having the most wonderful day. So let's go ahead and get into the disappearance of Akia Eggleston. Akia Eggleston was born on September 6th, 1994, and she was just 22 years old at the time of her disappearance. She had one child already, a daughter who was 5 years old that was from a previous relationship. Akia and her daughter lived in the Cherry Hill neighborhood of Baltimore, Maryland. Akia is described by everyone who knew her as a very type A person with lots of energy. She loved going out and doing stuff with her friends, and she was also extremely kind-hearted and generous. And this actually made her parents worry that she was taken advantage of at times. But Akia was just that kind of person who would give you the shirt off her back if you needed it. Sadly, when Akia was just 17, her mother passed away, and it hit her really hard, but she didn't let it dim her sparkle, and she, continued living her life. And unfortunately, Akia's mother didn't even get to meet her granddaughter because Akia gave birth after her mother's death. She still had a good relationship with her father, who was named Sean Wilkinson, and he will play an important role in this story. Not much information is out about Akia's ex-boyfriend who got her pregnant with her first child, but by all accounts, Akia was an extremely devoted mother to her child. So even though Akia was a single mom, she really devoted herself to her daughter. She wasn't into drugs or partying, and she really just lived like a calm lifestyle. And she was even more excited when she found out that she was pregnant with her second child. It was a boy this time, and even though Akia was a single mother, she took this in stride and she wasn't nervous at all. Something that her family and friends found kind of weird was that Akia was keeping the identity of her baby daddy a secret. Nobody knew whose child this was, but they did know that Akia was completely dedicated to giving birth to it and raising it. However, pregnancy for Akia was a lot more difficult this time around. It was actually ranked as a high-risk pregnancy, and she was a really short person, and in the 8th month of her pregnancy, her stomach was huge, and it was really difficult for her to get around. So she was basically bedridden, and all the housekeeping and cooking had to be done by her friends and family. One of her last doctor's appointments also determined that the baby was breech, which means he was upside down in her stomach as opposed to the right way, and this would make giving birth a lot more dangerous. Even though she was having a really difficult pregnancy, Akia's family and friends say that she was in really high spirits every time she spoke to them. Her friend Cece also said that Akia was planning on moving in with the father of her child prior to giving birth, and it was just, days away at the time that Akia went missing. So let's get into the actual day that people realize something may have happened to Akia. She's 8 months pregnant at this time, and she knows that she's giving birth to a baby boy, which she's so excited about because then she'll have both a boy and a girl. Her baby shower was scheduled for May 7th, 2017, and everyone shows up to the venue and they're waiting for Akia, but several hours go by and Akia just never shows up to her own baby shower. Her family is immediately worried by this because she's really not the kind of person who just doesn't show up to things. She had also sunk several $100s into this baby shower, buying decorations, renting out the venue, doing all of the planning. So why would she just not show up? Panic set in after her family and friends got to talking, and they realized that nobody had seen Akia in days. And she also hadn't posted on social media since May 3rd. So they go to her apartment as the very first step in this case, and they look around and notice that a lot of her furniture is missing. The dresser from her bedroom is no longer there, and her couch isn't there either. And she was 8 months pregnant, so it's not like she was moving this furniture out on her own. They also notice that there is a hole in the drywall of her apartment, almost like somebody had punched it. Akia was not a violent person, so somebody else must have done this, and this leads them to get worried that she had fallen victim to foul play. She had also missed her latest doctor's appointment, so this is extremely out of character for her. She has a high-risk pregnancy. She's reaching that final stage of pregnancy too, so you really shouldn't be skipping doctor's appointments at this time. Her friends and family hold a vigil for Akia at her apartment complex, and when they're leaving, one of her friends actually finds Akia's debit card just laying in the grass. And this makes them even more worried that she fell victim to foul play and that there was a financial motive. When her family gets into contact with the police, they immediately check her bank account activity, which stopped on May 3rd when she made a $450 withdrawal. She did this in person at the bank, and she is on the bank's security camera. This is also when people realized that Akia had been missing for 4 days before anyone realized, and this is long past the 48-hour window, which is so crucial to investigations. So just like any family of a missing person, they start coming up with theories about what might have happened to Akia. Something that troubled them was that one of her last Facebook posts was about how she wished she could see her mom. So this leads them to think that maybe Akia did something to hurt herself, or maybe she just ran away. But then again, she would never leave her daughter, so her family kind of rules this out. Akia also lived in the Cherry Hill area of Baltimore, and I'm not from Baltimore, but I did Google this area, and the very first Google suggestion was Cherry Hill crime. So it's really possible that at this point, they're worried that somebody may have attacked Akia. When you're pregnant, your chances of becoming a victim of a violent crime significantly increase. So the fact that she already lived in kind of a sketchy area, like it wasn't the worst, but it had like a housing development right next to it, and some people were wondering if maybe this was like a robbery gone wrong. Another thing is that Akia did receive a pretty big insurance payout from her mother's death, and she was not private about the fact that she received this money, and a lot of her friends would ask to borrow cash from her, which she always gave them since she was so generous. This worried her family, but she always told them that everything would be fine and that it was just her helping out her friends, but there were some times where her family definitely felt like she was being taken advantage of. And of course, the security camera at her apartment complex was not working that night, so there really wasn't that much that the police had to go off of once she left the bank. The police questioned this bank teller about Akia's demeanor and like what kind of stuff she was talking about and what she needed that $450 for. And this is when the bank teller actually tells them that they went to high school with Akia. So they were just kind of like chatting and catching up, and Akia told them that she needed this cash because the property manager only took cash. This draws like more credence to the theory that she was in the process of moving in with the father of her child. Remember, she had a baby daddy who she was keeping a secret from her family, but she did tell her friend that she had plans to move in with him. The police start investigating the identity of the father of her child, and through cell phone records, they're able to determine that the father of her child had a very surprising identity. He was actually her dad's best friend. Police found out that 22-year-old Akia Eggleston had gotten pregnant by 41-year-old Michael Robertson. Michael and her dad had been friends for decades, and he actually first met Akia back when she was a baby and her grandmother was babysitting her, and Michael was in his 20s at this time. Even more strange is that Michael had a girlfriend, another 22-year-old woman who had recently given birth to his child at the time of Akia's disappearance. Michael had been very evasive during the search for Akia and had completely ignored Akia's dad's attempts to reach out to him. Looking at the phone records of both Akia and Michael's phones, they find that Michael had messaged Akia a photo of an interior of an empty apartment on May 2nd. Ideally, this is the photo of the apartment that they would soon be moving into. After taking money out of her account on May 3rd, she messaged Michael via Facebook and said, "I called you and I got the money order." Now, what's really scary about this situation and what really tips police off is that when they start investigating the apartment that they were supposedly going to move into together, they find that the photo that Michael had sent Akia was of a completely different property. So it wasn't even the address of the apartment that they were supposedly going to be moving into. He just sent her a random photo. It's possible that this was all a ruse to keep Akia happy until he could get rid of her. The police are pretty sure that Michael had bad intentions because at 4 p.m. on May 3rd, a Lyft drives Michael to Akia's, and Akia had paid for this Lyft. Phone records indicate that Michael was in the area of Akia's apartment from 5:30 to just before 6:30. Around 5:22 p.m., right before Michael would have arrived, Akia sent her friend an invite to the baby shower. This was her last known communication. Phone records show that a telemarketer attempted to call Akia around 7 p.m., but she didn't pick up. Because her phone had received a call, it pinged off of a cell tower that was actually in the downtown area, not near Akia's apartment. Akia did not answer this phone call, and the phone was either turned off or disabled after this. Even more worrying is that Michael and his actual girlfriend had gotten into a volatile argument the night before Akia's disappearance. This was also the same night that she had posted a photo of a sonogram on Facebook. The police interviewed Michael in June 2017, and he told them that he and Akia had gotten into an argument. She told him to grab his stuff and never speak to her again. And at this point, Michael was already the prime suspect. Her aunt, Zenobia Wilson, even said that in her mind, he was always the suspect and eyes were on him immediately. Somehow, Michael made Akia disappear. And even when you have a clear suspect, it's hard to arrest somebody if there's no proof that the person is dead. If you're going to charge someone with murder, you usually need a body. It's very, very rare that people will go to jail for murder when the body has not been discovered. So many missing persons cases are just people who were killed, but the killer hid the body well. The police look at Michael's phone records and they find that he conducted several sketchy Google searches around the time that Akia went missing. These Google searches were: where does Baltimore City trash go when picked up, Baltimore City dumpster pickup, and Baltimore City landfill. Something that police also immediately noticed when they searched Akia's apartment was that there was a very clear path from the outside balcony to the dumpster behind her apartment, and it was pretty secluded as well, so there wouldn't be any witnesses if that was where he decided to dispose of her body. So in 2022, this information was enough to arrest Andre Michael Robertson for the murder of Akia Eggleston. Because she was so far along in her pregnancy, Michael is being charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, one for Akia and one for their unborn son. Police conducted multiple searches for Akia around Baltimore, and they say that they contributed over 1,000 hours total to finding her body. Unfortunately, Akia is still officially a missing persons case, but the fact that she has not had any contact with her family and there's no digital footprint and no sightings of her overwhelmingly indicates the fact that she is now deceased. I think it's pretty clear what happened here. I think Michael got another girl pregnant and it was getting in the way of his current relationship, so he decided to kill her. I also think that there was a financial extortion element to this case because Akia had given Michael cash. Akia's father has been very vocal about the lack of media coverage around his daughter's disappearance. She disappeared in 2017, and while it appeared on local news outlets, it really wasn't picked up on a national level. He really struggled with the police during this investigation, and he says that in 2020, he walked into the police precinct across from Akia's apartment, and none of the police officers even knew that there was a missing person right in their vicinity. The police were very tight-lipped, and it was difficult to find information about this case prior to the arrest of Michael Robertson, and I'm not really sure if this was part of like the police strategy. Maybe they didn't want Michael to know that they were onto him. Due to the size of the Baltimore dump and the amount of stuff that is there, there's so many different smells, and it's very unlikely that the police are ever going to be able to locate Akia's remains. Michael is currently being held in prison, and he faces 2 life sentences if convicted. I cover so many unsolved missing persons cases on this channel, so it's kind of bittersweet that one of them has an ending, even though Akia still hasn't been located. At least now her family has some closure as to what happened, but they still, of course, miss Akia. They miss seeing her smiling face every day. And I did want to include her daughter is now living with a family member. I want to say it's either her aunt Zenobia or her grandmother. And her daughter asks about her every single day. And sadly, it seems like they're never really going to get full closure for this story, but at least now justice is being served to Michael Robertson. That is all the information I have for you guys on the disappearance of Akia Eggleston. If you liked this video, then please give it a thumbs up for me and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. So until next video, I hope you guys all have a wonderful day and stay safe.